Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin.
There is a kind of dust that does not cling to bookshelves or gather under beds. It drifts softly through the darkness between stars, floating for billions of years like a silent memory carried on a breeze that has no name. This dust, interstellar dust, is ancient, older than Earth, older than the Sun, older perhaps than time as we know it. It is made of tiny grains, specks of carbon, silicon, oxygen, iron, born not from soil or sand but from stars themselves. You might picture it as a soft shimmer, glowing faintly with the light of things long gone. It moves through the vast, cold vacuum of space, and though it is nearly invisible, it shapes the galaxies we see, like unseen fingertips molding the edges of a dream. Long ago, stars lived and died, and in their final breaths they coughed out this dust, scattering it across the galaxy. In great stellar furnaces, atoms were fused into heavier elements, and when those stars exploded, supernovae flaring like brief cosmic flowers, they left behind trails of glowing debris. The dust is what remains when the brilliance fades. It does not forget. It carries the story of every sun that came before us. And in the quiet spaces between the stars, where there is no wind or weather, this dust endures. It drifts slowly, sometimes gathering in clouds light years wide, sometimes slipping unnoticed between larger, louder things. But always it is there, watching, remembering, waiting. Imagine lying on your back in the desert, staring up at the stars. You see the Milky Way smeared across the sky like spilled milk. That soft glow is more than light. It is the reflection of dust, scattering starlight like mist. Every shimmer you see might be a whisper from a faraway sun, filtered through grains no bigger than smoke. And in every one of those grains lies the story of life and death and rebirth. This dust has no heartbeat, no mind, and yet it holds the secret of where we come from. For Earth itself is made from it. You, me, the trees, the oceans, all of us were once scattered in those drifting clouds. It is in the womb of these dusty clouds that new stars are born. Like cocoons in the dark, dense regions of interstellar clouds collapse under their own gravity. Slowly, quietly, the dust gathers, thickens, and wraps around itself. Then, deep inside, heat begins to grow, and from that gentle warmth, a new star blinks into being. The dust shields it from harsh radiation, protecting the fragile process like soft hands cupping a flame. Around these newborn stars, disks of gas and dust begin to swirl, and within these disks, planets begin to form. Pebbles cling to dust, stones grow from pebbles, and over millions of years, worlds take shape. This is how Earth was made, from dust that traveled across eons. Scientists studying distant galaxies have discovered that this dust plays a strange and silent role in shaping everything we see. It bends light, dims starlight, reddens colors, softens the sharpness of edges. Without it, the universe would look colder, starker, harsher. But the dust adds texture to the cosmos, like soft brushstrokes on a canvas. Telescopes must peer through it, sometimes blinded by its fog, other times guided by its glow. In galaxies billions of light years away, astronomers see not just stars, but the faint fingerprints of dust, telling stories that stretch across the ages. But this dust does more than shape what we see. It carries chemistry through space. In the icy cores of dust grains, simple molecules form: water, methane, formaldehyde, and even amino acids, the building blocks of life. When comets and asteroids sweep through these dusty regions, they collect the molecules, becoming messengers of potential. And when they crash into young planets, they deliver those ingredients. This is one idea of how life began on Earth. That dust, bearing tiny packages of possibility, fell from the sky like soft, invisible rain. We sometimes think of space as empty, silent, vast beyond measure, and it is. But even in that emptiness, the dust floats, whispering of creation. It doesn't move quickly. It takes hundreds of thousands of years for a grain to drift a single light year, but it has time, it has patience, and so it drifts between the spirals of galaxies, through the cold lanes between stars, weaving silently across the firmament. Some of it falls into black holes, lost forever. Some becomes part of comets, moons, or the rings of Saturn. And some, after ages of wandering, finds itself in a warm little corner of space, orbiting a yellow sun, sticking to a rock that will one day grow trees and oceans and cities. When you breathe in, you're taking in atoms that once danced in stars. When you hold a stone, you're touching dust that floated through the galaxy before Earth was even formed. There is something quiet and eternal in that idea, that we are not just looking at the stars, we are made of them, that the dust we sweep from our shelves may be kin to the dust that watched galaxies rise. And so the dust drifts on, not hurried, not loud, not needing to be seen. It is the memory of light, the ash of fire, the seed of worlds. It is the hush after a symphony, the pause before a breath. And though it has no voice, it whispers still in the shimmer of starlight, in the glow of a nebula, in the soft, persistent tug of gravity. If you listen not with ears but with wonder, you might just hear it. A soft, steady whisper, older than time. I remember the stars. I remember them all. Now imagine drifting deeper into that vastness, the interstellar sea where dust becomes more than memory. Picture a nebula, a great glowing cloud, not solid but endless, suspended in the hush between stars. These nebulas are cradles of creation, spun from stardust and shadow. The Orion Nebula, for example, lies just beyond the reach of our eyes but fills telescopes with hues of violet and rose. Inside it, stars are being born from dust, one by one, like tiny lanterns kindled in the fog. This isn't fiction or fantasy. It's nature on its grandest, gentlest scale. Where we see smoke and mist, there are molecules colliding, currents swirling, matter folding in on itself until light bursts forth. All of this happens so slowly that from our small vantage point on Earth it appears still. But it is not still. The dust moves, the stars stir, and in that motion lies a rhythm, the quiet heartbeat of the galaxy. Astronomers have mapped these rhythms, not with sound but with light. Using infrared telescopes, they peer into the dust, tracing warm shapes hidden behind cold veils. They find structures as vast as continents, tendrils of gas and minerals stretching light years across. These are the filaments of life and death in space, places where old stars left their final breath and where new stars inhale their first. In the space between galaxies, there is dust too, drifting even farther into the darkness beyond familiar shapes. Some of it is thought to come from collisions when galaxies pass through one another like ghosts brushing hands. In those moments, dust is thrown outward, flung into the void. It is not wasted. It joins the cosmic sea, waiting to be gathered again. This dust, dark and nearly invisible, forms part of the intergalactic medium. Though we cannot see it with our eyes, its presence is felt in how light dims, bends, or scatters across space. Like a fog in the early morning, it both reveals and conceals. Scientists have long wondered how this dust came to be so important. At first, it was a nuisance, a blur on the telescope lens, a filter that made stars look redder than they were. But over time, researchers learned to listen to its silence. They realized the dust tells stories not through words but through its behavior. It shows where stars are dying, where galaxies are colliding, where time has slowed down. Even now, the James Webb Space Telescope peers deeper than any instrument before, unveiling galaxies behind clouds of ancient dust, galaxies born when the universe was young and soft with light. This soft dust doesn't just tell us about where things are, it tells us when. Because light takes time to travel, the further we look into space, the older the light becomes. And the dust, suspended across light years, becomes a kind of veil of time. In it, we see echoes of beginnings. We glimpse stars that no longer burn, whose light only now reaches our eyes. We see galaxies that once shimmered in youth, now aged or gone. And always the dust remains, soft, constant, loyal to the memory of what once was. There is a kind of holiness in how the universe holds on to its own past. Unlike human memory, which fades or shifts, The cosmos remembers everything through light and dust. A single photon might travel for billions of years before touching a telescope's mirror. A single grain of dust may journey from one galaxy to another, carried not by wind but by the faint breath of cosmic expansion. These movements are not accidents. They are part of the great, slow rhythm of all things. A rhythm that shaped the Milky Way, that carved our solar system from the quiet chaos of a dust cloud, that allowed Earth to form, oceans to rise, and life to blink open its eyes. And so we find ourselves not apart from this rhythm, but inside it. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen in your breath, all were formed in stars and carried here by dust. This is not a metaphor. It is a gentle truth. We are made of the same material as the galaxies. We belong to the same silence. And when we return to the ground, when our breath ceases, those atoms will drift again, perhaps into flowers, perhaps into sky, perhaps, one day, into space. There are scientists who now study dust not just for what it hides, but for what it offers. In labs, they simulate interstellar dust, recreating the vacuum of space and the cold of distant regions to observe how molecules cling to grains, how ultraviolet light triggers chemistry, how complexity arises from simplicity. They watch quietly as amino acids form on synthetic dust. And they wonder, could life begin again, somewhere far away from such humble seeds? The answer may lie not in dramatic revelations but in patience. Dust does not rush. Life does not hurry. A planet forms over millions of years. A microbe learns to breathe across eons. And somewhere in the silence of another galaxy, a star may already be watching over a young world as our sun once watched over this one. And there, perhaps, the dust has already begun to stir. If you ever feel small beneath the night sky, remember, it is not size that defines us but connection. You are connected to the stars not by light alone but by substance, by shared dust. You are a traveler in the same story, moving through the same slow breath. Even now, above you, dust from a distant supernova might be falling softly into Earth's upper atmosphere like the quietest snow. Even now, a comet streaks across space, its tail rich with dust that carries the signature of ancient stars. And somewhere in the dark, unlit reaches of the cosmos, that same dust remembers. It remembers the flash of creation, the cooling of gas, the long drift through nothing. It remembers touching other worlds. And now it touches you. You who breathe and blink and wonder. You who carry stars in your cells. The dust has no language, no thought, but it lingers in the curls of galaxies, the rings of Saturn, the tails of comets. It weaves itself into stories we are only beginning to understand. And when you close your eyes at night and let your thoughts drift far beyond rooftops and trees, you might feel it, the quiet hush of cosmic dust, falling through time, remembering everything. Let us now drift with that dust toward the closing of its story, not an end, but a soft folding into the larger rhythm. For cosmic dust never truly settles. It is in motion always, though we may never see it move. It becomes part of something and then something else. A grain lost in the vastness may someday warm itself in the glow of a new sun. The journey is long, but the dust is never in a hurry. It glides across the fabric of space, responding not to urgency, but to gravity's gentle call, to magnetism's invisible pull, to the quiet chemistry of what could be. And what could be is everything. A single dust grain may carry the spark of 1,000 possibilities. It may join with others to form a pebble, or gather moisture to become part of a cloud in the atmosphere of a distant world. Perhaps it will be swept up in a planetary ring, dancing in circles for centuries. Or maybe, as it brushes near a newborn star, it will melt, reform, fuse into a drop of metal or glass, embedded in a meteor hurled across light years until, one day, it collides with a blue planet and sinks quietly into a forest floor. On Earth, some of this interstellar dust is caught by high-flying aircraft, collected by scientists, and studied grain by grain. Under microscopes, it glitters with colors not found in any soil. In it are signs of supernova explosions, of slow stellar winds, of the earliest elements born in the universe. Each particle is like a fossil, a time capsule, preserving conditions from a moment when the universe was younger than memory. These tiny fragments are not just curiosities, they are answers, answers to questions we've barely begun to ask. But more than that, they are reminders. In the daily rush of things, we often forget how connected we are to the stars. We light our cities and forget the night sky. We pave the ground and forget what lies beneath it. And yet the dust remains. It falls softly onto rooftops and oceans alike. It touches mountain peaks and melts into snow. It becomes part of the wind, the rain, the quiet sediment at the bottom of lakes. You may walk through it and never know. You may breathe it in and feel no change. But it is there always, reminding the earth softly that it came from the stars. Even now there are clouds of dust drifting through the solar system, some from long-dead comets, others from ancient collisions. The zodiacal light, that faint glow visible just before dawn or after dusk, is sunlight scattered by interplanetary dust. It is a ghost of firelight, the sun's touch on a path of ash. Poets once thought it divine. Now we know it is real and no less wondrous for it. It is a daily reminder that even in darkness something glows. The story of cosmic dust does not end with the stars. It continues in the spaces in between. It connects the seen and unseen. And perhaps most beautifully, it invites us to slow down, to observe, to feel the weight of time in a single grain. It is so easy to overlook what is small, to dismiss the invisible. But the dust teaches us otherwise. It says, what is quiet can still be powerful. What is soft can shape the stars. What drifts may still arrive. Even as galaxies spin and collide, as black holes swallow light, as quasars flare with unimaginable energy, the dust drifts on. It is untouched by urgency. It cares not for spectacle, it simply is. Its presence softens the edges of the cosmos, adds texture to the light, carries the scent of time. You might say the universe breathes through it, and in that breath we exist. Sometimes when scientists observe young stars forming in dusty clouds, they notice something strange. As the dust clears and planets form, light changes. Infrared patterns shift. It's almost like a curtain being pulled back on a stage. But what the curtain reveals isn't a final act. It's a new beginning, a solar system being born, a dance of gravity, rock, gas, and light. And at the heart of that dance, dust, always the first to arrive and often the last to leave. This is why the dust matters. Not because it dazzles or demands attention, but because it holds everything together. Without it, stars wouldn't form, planets wouldn't gather, life as we know it wouldn't emerge. Its quiet persistence shapes everything we love and know. And so the more we look, the more we realize, the smallest things are often the most important. And so the dust continues, remembering stars, shaping shadows, cradling the seeds of life in the soft curve of its form. It moves through galaxies like pollen on a spring breeze, gently sowing the fields of the cosmos. It carries with it no voice, and yet it speaks volumes. It carries no emotion, and yet it stirs wonder. And when we finally fall silent and listen, not just with our ears but with our whole being, we may feel what it has always known. That we are not just here for now on this little planet. We are part of a vast memory, part of a story written in starlight and scattered in dust, a story still unfolding, still drifting. And maybe, just maybe, the dust remembers us too. High above the turning Earth, where atmosphere fades into nothing, galaxies begin to appear not as sharp spirals or tidy wheels, but as smudges in the sky, soft, floating structures adrift in the black sea of space. They do not hold their shape tightly, nor move with haste. Instead, they drift, slowly and gently, as if borne on a wind we cannot feel. To us, they seem eternal, but galaxies, too, are wanderers. They bend, stretch, and shift over time, their stars moving like grains in a great swirling mist. There is no up or down in space, no compass to guide them, only the slow pull of gravity and the memory of motion long ago begun. The Milky Way, our home, is one such drifting galaxy. It is vast, nearly 200,000 light-years across, its arms spiraling with stars and gas and dust. Yet despite its immense size, it is not fixed. It glides through space, moving toward its neighbors, slowly reshaping itself over billions of years. It is like a giant cloud, flexible, shifting, sometimes stretched by gravity's touch. Its stars circle a center we cannot see, where a black hole waits, quiet and heavy. Around that center, the stars trace invisible paths, taking hundreds of millions of years to complete a single loop. Galaxies drift not alone but in groups, in clusters and filaments like clouds that form patterns across a dark sky. Some pass near each other, pulled gently together by unseen threads. When they do, tides of stars rise within them. Shapes twist. Tails of gas are drawn out like strands of silk. In time they may merge, becoming one. The Milky Way is now on such a journey. It moves slowly toward the Andromeda Galaxy, which also drifts, pulled forward by a quiet longing shared across space. In 4 billion years they will meet, not in a crash but in a dance. Their stars, spaced so widely, will pass each other like ghosts, but their shapes will change. New stars may form, old ones may be flung outward, and in the end a new galaxy will emerge from the calm collision. This motion is not chaotic. It follows the soft logic of gravity, the unspoken rhythm of mass and time. Every star in every galaxy has its own path, its own journey, its own slow turn, and yet together they create something fluid. From afar, galaxies resemble spirals, ovals, or odd, warped smudges. But up close, they are swarms, individual stars, each moving quietly, never in haste. It is this harmony of motion, this cosmic choreography, that gives galaxies their form. Like clouds shaped by wind, they are always in transition, never fixed, always drifting toward something unseen. Sometimes, a galaxy will pass through a cloud of intergalactic gas. The pressure strips away its outer layers, like a breeze brushing dust from a ledge. Other times, a galaxy's spin will cause its arms to wrap tighter or loosen, depending on what lies nearby. In the largest clusters, galaxies whirl around shared centers, influenced not just by visible matter but by dark matter, a mysterious force that we cannot see, but which shapes their paths all the same. It is as if the clouds were floating through a room full of invisible currents, responding to forces they cannot name. We can only glimpse these dances through long, slow observation. Telescopes take snapshots of the sky, year after year, century after century, revealing small changes. A faint tail grows longer. A bright core becomes dim. A new star cluster blooms on the edge of a spiral arm. From these clues, scientists reconstruct the drift, the migration, the quiet reshaping of galaxies. They build simulation, letting billions of stars interact over eons and watch the graceful arcs unfold. What they see is not chaos but calm, an immense stillness in motion. And through it all, light travels. From every galaxy, light pours out, stretching across time. Some of it began its journey before Earth had formed, before the sun was born. It brings us images of galaxies as they were, not as they are. We look back in time as we look into space, and what we see are drifting shapes caught mid-motion, caught in their slow transformation from one form to another. It is like seeing a cloud mid-change, halfway between a dragon and a wave, knowing it will soon become something else entirely. Even the colors of galaxies change as they drift. Young galaxies glow blue, lit by hot, newborn stars. Older galaxies fade to gold and red, their stars cooler, quieter, their gas spent. As galaxies move, they age, and as they age, their light softens. Some become quiet elliptical shapes, their days of star-making behind them. Others, in lonely corners of the universe, remain small and bright, bursting with new stars like sparks in the dark. No two galaxies follow the same journey. Each one drifts according to its own past, shaped by collisions, by time, by chance. And so we look at them not as objects but as travelers, ancient, slow, and wondrous. They are the floating cities of the cosmos, their lights shining not in haste but in peace. We imagine them as silent balloons drifting through a great ocean of stars. And we remember, our own Earth is part of this drift. The sun moves through the Milky Way. Our solar system orbits the galaxy's heart. The galaxy itself glides toward Andromeda. And even the local group of galaxies moves through a larger structure, carried by unseen flows. There is no fixed point in the universe, no anchor, no stillness apart from motion, And in that endless drift there is a kind of comfort. Nothing is hurried, nothing is lost. Everything moves softly from one state to the next. Galaxies drift like clouds, gently, endlessly, beautifully, across the canvas of time. Let's drift deeper now into that slow-moving sea of stars. As galaxies wander the cosmos, they do so in ways shaped by stories long begun and still unfolding. Their shapes tell those stories softly, spirals that curl like sleeping tendrils, ellipticals smooth and ancient, irregulars like scattered brushstrokes. Each one is shaped not by a sudden act, but by a million tiny motions, by gravity's gentle guidance, by tides of gas and light, by the slow accumulation of time. They are like floating islands, gathering and shedding, growing and fatting, all while keeping a steady, silent pace. This is not the drama of explosions or the flash of comets. This is the quiet motion of the universe itself. In the great cosmic web, galaxies are strung like dewdrops on invisible threads. These threads are not woven of matter we can see. They are made of dark matter, an unseen skeleton that binds galaxies into clusters, clusters into superclusters, and all of it into a web that stretches across billions of light years. The galaxies do not cling tightly to these filaments. Instead, they slide along them, pulled by forces we can measure but not touch. It is as if they are drifting along the veins of the universe, each step slow, each turn soft. And in this softness there is pattern. Galaxies near the center of clusters move faster, drawn toward the mass around them. Those on the edges are quieter, like petals caught in a breeze. Sometimes, two galaxies spiral toward each other for billions of years, slowly merging in a cosmic waltz. Stars are flung into great tidal streams, curved like ribbons through the void. Gas clouds collide, compress, and new stars are born in the warmth of their meeting. All the while the drift continues, not rushed, not random, but governed by gravity's calm insistence. Consider the Magellanic Clouds, two small galaxies that drift near our own Milky Way. They dance around it, bound by its gravity, trailing streams of gas behind them. They are like moons to our galaxy, companions on a long journey. Eventually, they may be absorbed into the Milky Way, their stars joining ours. But for now, they remain just beyond, drifting like fireflies caught in a slow current. Their journey is written not in days or years, but in eons. Some galaxies carry within them the signs of older dances, rings of stars that show where another galaxy passed through, shells of gas that hint at collisions long past. They are not scars, but quiet echoes, evidence of motion, of change. Nothing in the universe stays untouched. Everything is shaped by what it passes, what it meets, what it leaves behind. And yet this shaping is not violent, it is patient. It is the shaping of rivers wearing down stone, of roots shifting the soil, the shaping of drift. When astronomers map these galactic drifts, they see patterns that reach farther than we once imagined. They find flow lines where entire groups of galaxies move together, as if caught in a single, slow tide. They find great voids, empty and quiet, where galaxies are scarce, and others, walls and threads, where they cluster thickly. These structures are so large that light takes hundreds of millions of years to cross them. And through it all, galaxies drift onward, their paths shaped by ancient movements, their destinations still unknown. This motion does more than shape where galaxies are, it shapes what they become. As galaxies drift through space, they gather gas. Some of it becomes new stars, but sometimes they lose gas too, stripped away by pressure, stolen by neighbors, or blown out by the heat of exploding stars. These changes shift their futures. A galaxy that can no longer make stars begins to fade. Its lights dim. It becomes quieter, older. This too is part of the drift, not just through space, but through age. The stars within galaxies drift too. Not just around the center, but up and down, back and forth, each one on a unique path, yet all part of the same system. Our Sun is one of these stars, circling the galaxy's heart once every 230 million years. It rises and falls through the galactic disk, like a wave moving through a larger sea. Around it, thousands of other stars follow similar paths, each with its own rhythm, each carrying planets, comets, moons. And still the galaxy as a whole drifts, carried by the same unseen hand. If you could watch this drift unfold over billions of years, you would see galaxies stretch, bend, and fold like silk in water. You would see arms reach outward, filaments snap and rejoin, halos of stars swirl gently around cores. You would see chaos become order and then dissolve into a new kind of stillness. It is the long unfolding of form. Nothing is finished and nothing is wasted. We often think of the universe as static because change comes so slowly. But in truth, it is in constant motion, not with the sharp motion of machines, but with the patient drift of clouds. Galaxies rise and fall in brightness. They move apart as the universe expands, the space between them stretching like soft taffy. The further out we look, the faster this expansion seems. Distant galaxies drift away from us not because they are fleeing, but because space itself is growing. It is the quiet breath of the cosmos, expanding with every passing moment. And still the galaxies drift, not toward or away from anything, but simply onward. Their motion is not a journey with a destination, but a motion that carries meaning in itself, a dance of light and time, a reminder that movement does not always require speed, that transformation does not need noise, that something can be vast, old, and slow, and still be alive with purpose. When we watch galaxies, we are watching the past, but we are also watching the rhythm of now. The drift is not finished. It continues above us, around us, through us. It is part of the same motion that turns the earth, that pulls the moon across the sky, that guides the tides. It is one breath stretched across the stars, and we, though small, are part of it, not passengers but participants, not separate but included. We are made from the stars that drift. We live inside the galaxy that drifts. And so, with each moment, we too are drifting, softly, slowly, beautifully, through a universe that never truly stands still. Let us now return to that wide celestial ocean, where galaxies float not as isolated wonders but as soft footprints of a universe always in motion. In this final drift through their story, we begin to see that galaxies are more than distant light. They are the quiet keepers of cosmic time. Each one is a diary of the universe, its chapters written in stars, its margins filled with gas and dust, its sentences etched in slow rotation. Their movements, though imperceptible in the span of a single lifetime, are steady and constant, like the tide pulling gently on the shore. And within this calm unfolding, the universe remembers how to change. There is no single path a galaxy follows. Some are born in dense clusters, surrounded by dozens or hundreds of neighbors, their lives shaped by the crowd. Others emerge in solitude, drifting through empty regions like lone clouds across a blue sky. Each experiences a different fate. Some spiral beautifully for billions of years before becoming stretched and torn by a nearby gravitational encounter. Others never settle into a shape at all, instead remaining irregular, tangled, scattered, and shimmering like cosmic mist. And in all cases, their drift is never hurried, never sharp. They unfold as flowers do, in silence with grace. Galaxies also grow. Through quiet accumulation, they gather smaller companions, absorbing them like drops joining a puddle. These minor mergers leave behind trails of stars, streams that arc across the sky, like the ghost paths of birds long gone. Our own Milky Way is in the process of such growth. It is pulling in several smaller galaxies, including the Sagittarius Dwarf and the Magellanic Clouds. These mergers are not crashes but soft incorporations, reshaping the galaxy gently over millions of years. With each new star absorbed, the Milky Way changes, its halo swelling, its arms thickening, its memory growing deeper. And in some places, galaxies bloom. They undergo bursts of star formation, lighting up with clusters of new suns. This can happen when gas flows inward or when a merger stirs the dust. These starburst galaxies shine brightly in the infrared, their light warm and rich. Yet even in their brightness, they remain calm. Their beauty lies not in how fast they burn, but in how fully they express the quiet potential within them. The potential to become more, to give birth to light, to carry warmth across time. There are galaxies so far away that their light began its journey toward us before Earth existed. We see them as they were at the beginning of time, and even in their early forms they are drifting. Some are already merging, forming the seeds of what will become the galaxies we know today. Others are still small, still assembling, their shapes loose and undefined. But they too carry the same signature of motion, the same slow turning, the same gravitational currents. Across every age and every corner the drift remains. And yet, despite all this motion, galaxies hold onto their light. It spills out from them in waves, carrying stories that stretch across billions of years. That light is what reaches our eyes, what touches the lenses of telescopes, what becomes data and color and meaning. And because it has taken so long to arrive, it allows us to see not just where galaxies are, but who they were. This light is the whisper they send into the dark, the echo of their existence, the soft glow of their place in the great unfolding of things. The future of galaxies, too, is shaped by drift. The universe is expanding, and as it does, galaxies move farther from one another. Over time, the night sky will change. The most distant galaxies will slip beyond view, their light stretched so thin by expansion that it fades into invisibility. One day, only the nearest galaxies will remain visible, perhaps only our own and those closest to it. To future astronomers, the universe may appear quiet and still. But we know now that the drift continues, whether we can see it or not. And so, in their slow migration, galaxies teach us something subtle and profound. That transformation is not always loud. That movement is not always visible. That even across unimaginable distances and through uncountable years, something soft can shape something vast. This is the truth of the galaxies. Not that they move quickly, but that they never stop. Not that they burn brightly forever, but that they carry light as far as it can go. Not that they shout their presence, but that they remain, drifting like clouds, remembering the shape of time. As you gaze up into the night sky, remember this. The stars you see are only a handful from a single arm of a single galaxy. Beyond them are hundreds of billions more stars, and beyond those stars, hundreds of billions more galaxies. Each one moving, each one breathing, each one unfolding a story too long for a single night, but just right for the rhythm of the cosmos. And among them our own galaxy drifts, gently like a boat across a quiet lake with us inside. We are not separate from this motion. We belong to it. We are part of the drift, part of the long, slow bloom of stars and dust and time. And though we may never see the arc of that journey complete, we can feel its direction, like wind on skin, like warmth on stone. Galaxies drift like clouds. They change like clouds. They pass and part and return again. And when we look at them, not with urgency but with wonder, we remember that we, too, are soft travelers, floating gently through the wide, silent breath of the universe. Between the suns, where starlight thins and warmth fades, there exists a silence so complete it cannot be heard, only felt. It is not the silence of absence, but the quiet of fullness, of a place too wide for noise, too deep for echo. This silence drapes itself across the void like velvet, wrapping every planet, every comet, every particle that floats between stars. It is in these great interstellar spaces, these vast stretches of almost nothing, that the universe reveals its truest quiet. No wind, no water, no song, just the steady hum of space expanding, the faint murmur of particles too small to see, and the deep, enduring hush that lingers between the lights. Imagine sailing through this silence, beyond the reach of any sun's warmth, where no shadows fall because there is nothing to cast them, where light from nearby stars takes years to arrive, dimmed and stretched by time. Here the darkness is not empty. It is a sea of potential filled with drifting atoms, lost photons, whispering particles of dust. Hydrogen atoms, the most ancient, the most common, float freely here, birthed in the earliest seconds of time. They do not shout their presence. They do not glow. But they are the background breath of the universe, waiting quietly in the spaces where stars have not yet come to bloom. This silence is more than an absence of sound. It is a living medium. Between the suns, entire clouds of gas stretch across light years, often invisible unless they are touched by ultraviolet light or disturbed by a wandering star. These clouds are nurseries in waiting, reservoirs of raw material from which future stars may rise. Some are warm, thin, and ghost-like, ionized hydrogen shaped by the light of nearby suns. Others are cold and dense, like black ink spilled into the void. In their depths, molecules form, hydrogen 2 by 2, carbon monoxide, and traces of more complex chemistry. These are not loud reactions. They are slow, deliberate, and silent, taking thousands of years to craft a single complex chain. Yet, for all their quiet, these spaces are not without structure. The space between stars is threaded with magnetic fields, invisible and gentle, guiding charged particles through curved paths. Cosmic rays, high-energy fragments born in distant supernovae, fly through these regions, sometimes for millions of years, buffeted only slightly by the whisper-thin plasma that surrounds them. The silence they move through is not still, but active in a way almost impossible to grasp, more like the stillness of a heartbeat between beats, or the space between breaths. The silence between suns also serves as a canvas upon which light travels. It does not stop or bounce, but glides, uninterrupted until something chooses to catch it. A photon emitted by a star might travel for tens of thousands of years before it touches dust, or the surface of a planet, or the mirror of a telescope on Earth. And in all that time, through all that distance, it passes through silence. This journey leaves no mark, but it tells a story. The colors we see, the spectra we measure, the shifts in light, they all carry with them a memory of the space they crossed. In that memory is the signature of silence. Some stars are close companions to one another, sharing gravitational ties and dancing in binary systems. But most stars are alone, each one separated from its neighbors by vast stretches of darkness. The nearest star to our Sun, Proxima Centauri, is over 4 light-years away. That's nearly 40 trillion kilometers, a gap so wide that it could swallow the orbit of every planet in our solar system many times over and still leave space untouched. And in between, nothing loud. Just the interstellar medium, thin gas, cold dust, the relics of old stars, and the quiet footprints of what has yet to form. And still, this silence is not without purpose. It is not wasted. The regions between suns act as buffers, as resting grounds, as pathways. They allow stars to evolve without interference. They give dying stars room to release their outer layers without immediate absorption. They let light travel undisturbed for eternity. And they act as archives, preserving the materials of one generation of stars so that another may rise. From this silence, the loudest births can occur. The flash of a supernova, the coalescing of a protostar, the ignition of fusion in a heart of hydrogen. But until then, it is waiting, hushed, patient, and still. Somewhere in this space, far from any planet or moon, a lonely spacecraft drifts. Voyager 1, launched in 1977, now travels through the interstellar medium. It has passed beyond the influence of the sun, into a realm where solar winds no longer protect it, where it touches the edge of true silence. Its instruments still send back data, carried by a radio signal so faint it takes hours to reach us. And what it reports is not nothingness, but the presence of that great quiet, the interstellar sea, vast and calm. Voyager does not hear the silence, but it travels through it slowly, like a thought stretching across time. There is poetry in that journey. A machine made by hands, carrying a golden record of music and greetings, drifting through the silence between suns, untouched by war or weather, bearing stories into the hush. It reminds us that even silence can carry meaning, that between the bright points of light we see in the sky, there are spaces filled with promise, with ancient gas, with soft magnetism, with silence that is not empty but sacred. And so, in these gaps between suns, the universe breathes. Not loudly, not quickly, but with a rhythm we are only beginning to hear. It is a rhythm of patience, of vast stillness, of paths unfolding across millennia. The silence between stars is not something to be solved or filled. It is something to be honored, to be listened to, not with ears but with understanding. In this silence lives everything that ever was and everything that will be, the dust from dying stars, the atoms that will someday become planets, the quiet lines along which galaxies align. It is the soft pause in the universe's sentence, the breath before its next word. And though we may not yet know what that word will be, we know this. It will rise from silence. Let's drift deeper into that stillness now, into the quiet corridors of the cosmos where time seems to thicken, and movement slows to something softer than sound. In these interstellar spaces, the silence has a texture, thin and weightless, yet endless. You might imagine it as velvet spread across an infinite table, or as dark water without current. The suns, so bright and roaring in their brilliance, sit far apart in this grand hall. And between them lies a space not forgotten, but quietly pulsing with unseen life. This is not emptiness, it is a gentle waiting. Here, the space between stars becomes a place of memory. Each region holds echoes of the stars that once were. The material floating through these voids, the gas and dust, isn't new. It has been here before. It has passed through the hearts of stars, been shaped by supernovae, cast out as planetary nebulae, stretched and folded by magnetic winds. The atoms of oxygen or nitrogen drifting here may once have lit a sun. They may have flowed through the rivers of long-dead worlds. Now they rest, cooled to near absolute zero, moving slowly through space as if dreaming. It is in these interstellar spaces that the cycle of stellar life is cradled. The silence between stars is not the pause after a story, it is the moment before one begins. Vast molecular clouds, invisible to the eye, gather in these regions, stretching hundreds of light years across. Inside them, deep in their coldest pockets, gravity begins to work its quiet pull. Atoms nudge closer, temperatures drop, motion slows further still. And in this deep hush, a star begins to form, not suddenly, not noisily, but gradually, like a heartbeat forming in the dark. The silence doesn't end here, it simply takes a new shape. Some of the most famous nebulae in the sky, the Eagle, the Horsehead, the Pillars of Creation, are places where this silence is heavy with potential. Images captured by telescopes show columns and plumes and filaments, glowing softly with infrared and ultraviolet light. But inside those glowing arms are shadows, cold voids where the light cannot reach, and it is in those very shadows that stars are born. The process takes millions of years, and from our point of view, it is stillness. But within that stillness, the dance of physics plays on. Pressure rises, density increases, and eventually fusion will ignite and the silence will give birth to light. But even when stars are born, they do not break the silence entirely. Their light shines outward, yes. Their solar winds stir nearby gas. But in the vast stretches between systems, the silence holds. Our own solar system, for all its planets and moons and comets, is a small island in a much wider ocean. Beyond Pluto, beyond the Kuiper belt, beyond the scattered disk, there is the Oort cloud, a spherical halo of icy objects that marks the border between solar influence and interstellar space. Even here, the silence is almost total. Comets sleep for billions of years, untouched by sunlight, drifting slowly through the deep. The cosmic microwave background also flows through this silence. This faint radiation, remnant heat from the Big Bang, fills every corner of the universe. It is not loud, it is not even warm, but it is present, a soft glow stretched thin over time, bathing the silence with a temperature just above absolute zero. If you could listen to this radiation, you would not hear words or notes. You would hear a soft hiss, steady, even, ancient. It is the whisper of the cosmos, beginning, still echoing across the gaps between stars. There are also strange and quiet travelers in this space, rogue planets ejected from their systems, wandering the galaxy alone. They do not orbit suns. They drift unlit in the dark. Some may carry oceans beneath frozen crusts. Others may be covered in clouds of methane or rings of ice. We don't know how many there are, but we believe there are more of them than stars. And in the silence between suns, they sail unnoticed, wrapped in shadows, waiting for nothing in particular but continuing on. Even black holes contribute to this hush. These collapsed stars do not shine. They do not reflect. They do not announce their presence unless they feed. But even then, in the quiet in-between, they pass unseen. Some drift through these vast regions, invisible but present, tugging gently on nearby matter, curving the space around them with gravity so deep that even light cannot escape. And unless they interact, they move silently, like shadow puppets across a darkened wall. Scientists often speak of this interstellar space in numbers, in terms of particle density, pressure, temperature. But those numbers miss the poetry, for the silence between stars is not just physical, it is philosophical. It reminds us how small we are, how much space there truly is, how slowly time unfolds when you step outside the orbit of daily life. A message from a spacecraft can take hours to reach Earth. A photon from a distant star might take thousands of years. In that time, continents shift, languages are born and forgotten, but the silence stays the same. Even time feels different here. Without a sun rising and setting, without seasons or shadows, time loses its rhythm. It becomes a soft drift rather than a ticking clock. And perhaps that's the most profound part of this silence. It asks nothing of us. It doesn't urge or push or rush. It simply is. And in its presence, we are invited to be still as well. When you lie beneath the stars at night, looking up at the speckled sky, the space between those points of light is not empty. It is full of stories yet to be told, of atoms waiting to become something more, of planets you cannot yet see, of light on its way. It is full of silence, yes, but a silence that holds not emptiness but everything. Let us now follow this silence to its softest end, where even motion forgets its name, and time stretches into something like stillness. In the space between suns, there is no final boundary, no sudden wall where one thing ends and another begins. There is only the slow, continuous breath of the cosmos, expanding outward with a gentleness so deep it feels like stillness itself. This silence does not close like a door. It opens endlessly into more silence. And within it, something beautiful happens. Things begin to remember who they were and what they might become again. In the outer reaches of galaxies, where stars grow sparse and gas thins to a whisper, the silence becomes fuller. Gravitational fields begin to stretch and fade. Temperatures fall until motion nearly stops. Here, dark matter quietly scaffolds the galactic halo, holding together what light can no longer reach. There is no clatter, no sound of tension, just the weightless tug of invisible threads guiding stars and particles in wide, slow orbits. The silence here is not the end of story. It is the space that allows story to unfold. In this place, remnants of past stars drift like forgotten memories. White dwarfs, fatting cores of long-dead suns, glow faintly for billions of years before cooling to black. Neutron stars, dense and still humming with ancient spins, rotate silently through the dark. And even black holes, the quietest of all, continue their patient drift. They do not roar, they do not shine, they only shape. They bend the fabric of space itself, curving light around them, guiding the drift of the medium through which they move. And then somewhere within this great hush, a new disturbance stirs. A cloud thickens. A pulse of gravity folds matter together. What was once scattered begins to gather. Hydrogen meets hydrogen and the silence becomes heavy with potential. This is how the silence transforms, not through noise but through becoming. A star is born, slowly, softly. The silence parts just enough to let fusion whisper its first breath. Light emerges not with thunder but with calm, steady brilliance. Over billions of years, this light travels, crosses the emptiness, and finds its way to a planet. Maybe it is Earth, maybe it is another. And there a living thing opens its eyes, turns its face upward, and wonders where the light has come from. It doesn't know the star's name. It doesn't know the path the light has taken. But it feels something ancient in the warmth, something familiar in the glow. The silence between suns has become a connection, not a barrier but a bridge. As we explore deeper into space, with telescopes that stretch our vision and probes that leave our solar wind behind, we are learning to read the silence differently. Not as absence, but as fullness. Not as blankness, but as the stage upon which all things appear. The more we see, the more we realize how much is hidden between the stars. How many stories have yet to unfold in the gaps. How many voices rest unspoken in the quiet. Even time is rewritten in this silence. The age of stars is measured in billions of years. The dance of galaxies takes even longer, but the silence between them is timeless. It is the space that holds beginnings and endings alike. It does not rush, it does not forget. And so, when we feel lost or small in the vastness of it all, we can return to this truth that we are not separate from this silence. We are shaped by it, held by it, carried within it like a leaf on the surface of a quiet lake. The Earth, too, floats in this silence. It spins gently beneath its atmosphere, cocooned in the vacuum of space. Sunlight warms one side while night swells on the other. And even here, wrapped in air and sound, the silence beyond is never far. It presses softly against our world, not as a threat, but as a reminder of where we are. We are a luminous island in a vast and dreaming sea. When you sit alone under a starry sky and the world around you quiets, you may begin to feel that silence more deeply. It is not frightening, it is not cold. It is vast, yes, but it is also soft. And if you let yourself settle into it, you might find a sense of home. For this silence between suns is the silence we were born from, the silence we carry within, the silence to which all things return. And so the story continues, not in sudden bursts, but in endless drift. The silence flows through every thread of creation. It cradles light, nurtures shadow, and gives space for becoming. It asks nothing, offers everything. And though it never speaks, it is never empty. For in this silence lives the memory of stars and the promise of more. The stars will continue to shine, the dust will continue to drift, and the space between them will continue to expand. But within that ever-growing hush, we will always find a place to wonder, a place to rest, a place to belong. For in the silence between suns, we do not disappear. We begin. Before there were stars, before galaxies spun their arms through space, before even atoms had found each other in the dark, there was light. But not the kind of light we know now, not the warm glow of sunrise or the flicker of a candle's flame. This was light at the edge of time itself, newly born from a cosmos that had just taken its first breath. In the earliest moments after the universe began, everything was hot and dense and bright, but not in a way that allowed light to move freely. It was trapped, scattered endlessly by charged particles, bouncing from one to another like voices in a crowded room, unable to find a clear path forward. And yet light was there, waiting. This time is known as the cosmic dawn, not because stars had yet appeared, but because the conditions were beginning to shift. The universe was expanding, cooling, softening. Imagine it as a fog lifting slowly and quietly after a long, warm night. The particles that had once been bound so tightly began to settle, allowing light to stretch its limbs. Around 380,000 years after the Big Bang, the universe changed. Electrons found protons, hydrogen atoms formed, and the fog cleared. This moment is called recombination, not a loud event but a gentle settling. And in that settling, light took its first breath. It escaped the fog. It began to travel freely. It began to tell its story. This ancient light is still with us. It fills the entire sky, coming from every direction, not as a beam or a flash, but as a soft, uniform glow. We call it the cosmic microwave background, CMB. It is the afterglow of creation, stretched by time, cooled by expansion, softened into radio waves. If you tune a television to a dead channel, a tiny portion of the static you see is this ancient light, whispering to us from the beginning. It is not loud, it is not bright, but it is constant. And in it lies a perfect memory of when light first moved unburdened. Scientists study this light with great care. They build sensitive instruments and launch satellites into space, COBE, WMAP, Planck, to read its subtle variations. And what they find is astonishing. Though the light is almost perfectly smooth, it carries gentle ripples, tiny fluctuations in temperature that reveal the seeds of galaxies to come. These are not random. They are echoes of quantum ripples stretched across the newborn universe. From these tiny shifts, everything else was born. Galaxies, stars, planets, oceans, trees, all of it traces back to the whisper in this light. There is something sacred in how soft that beginning was. Not an explosion in the sense of chaos, but a graceful expansion, as though the universe were unfolding rather than erupting. The first breath of light was not a shout, but a sigh. And in that sigh, time began to flow more freely. Space stretched like warm fabric. Temperature dropped like dusk after a summer day. And the light that had waited so long to move began its journey, uninterrupted, across the cosmos. This journey has never stopped. For nearly 14 billion years, the photons from that first breath have traveled outward. They have passed through the birth of stars, the collisions of galaxies, the slow blooming of solar systems. They do not age, they do not forget. They carry with them the shape and sound of the early universe, not in words but in wavelength, in energy and direction. They are time travelers of the purest kind, untouched by gravity's slowing, undimmed by distance. And now they reach us. When we look at the CMB, we are not seeing light reflected or bent or emitted from objects nearby. We are seeing light itself, unfiltered from a time when there was nothing but the beginning. It is like listening to the first note of a symphony that is still playing, still unfolding. Every galaxy, every atom, every breath we take is a continuation of that first sound. And the light remembers. But this light did more than mark the beginning, it set the rhythm for what would come. As it moved, it carried energy. As it spread, it cooled. And in its cooling, it made space for structure. The tiny differences in temperature left in its wake became gravitational wells. These wells pulled in matter, gathered dust and gas, formed halos and filaments. And slowly, the first stars began to gather. The first galaxies found their shape. All of it guided, in part, by the imprint of that first breath of light. Even now, this ancient light affects the universe. Its soft pressure pushes gently against matter, a force so faint we barely feel it, but one that helped shape the early universe's growth. It is the quiet architect behind the scenes, laying down a scaffolding of space and time upon which everything else was built. Without that first breath of light, the universe would be a very different place, perhaps darker, perhaps more chaotic, perhaps not here at all. And yet, for all its influence, the light remains humble. It does not shout for attention. It does not demand recognition. It surrounds us quietly, bathing the universe in a low, soft hum. It is a glow that requires stillness to detect, patience to understand. But once found, it becomes a kind of cosmic heartbeat, steady, ancient, and reassuring. When you close your eyes and imagine the vastness of space, try to picture not just stars and planets, but the quiet in-between, filled with this gentle, primordial light. It is older than galaxies, older than atoms, older than memory itself. And yet it is with us always, passing through walls, through clouds, through our own bodies. It does not judge or divide or change its message. It only continues, traveling, carrying, remembering. This is what light does when given the space to breathe. It does not fade. It expands. It whispers its origins across time. And in doing so, it reminds us that beginnings are not always loud, that creation can be gentle, that the first breath, if it is long enough and soft enough, can last forever. Now let us follow that ancient light forward as it continues its long journey across the shaping universe. In the quiet that came after its first breath, space itself was still young, gentle, expanding, filled with potential. The first stars had not yet burned and galaxies had not yet spun. But even in this apparent stillness, the foundation for all things was being laid. Light moved through hydrogen and helium, cooling the universe with its quiet presence, guiding matter into place. It did not rush. It meandered with patience, outlining the web of gravity's future structure. And while we often speak of darkness in those early ages, it was not the darkness of nothingness. It was the darkness of preparation, a womb before birth, a canvas waiting for its color. As time passed, small fluctuations in density, those quiet ripples captured in the cosmic microwave background, began to pull matter together. These regions grew heavier, drawing in more particles, deepening the wells in space. The first stars were born here not with firecrackers but with quiet intensity. They were vast and hot and brief, giants burning with blue-white light. Their birth marked the end of the cosmic dark age. And once again, light changed the universe. It was no longer only the ancient glow of recombination, but the sharp radiance of fusion, of new energy being released from collapsing clouds. This epoch is known as reionization, a soft, universe-wide awakening. The light from the first stars began to break apart the hydrogen fog that had filled space, making it transparent again, opening clear windows across vast distances. These first stars lived fast and died young, but their death seeded the cosmos with heavier elements: carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, iron. The next generations of stars born from those remnants would live longer, shine warmer, and eventually give rise to planets. The light now moved through a universe being sculpted, gently but deliberately, by time and gravity and fusion. And through it all, that first breath of light still traveled. Though dimmed by distance and stretched by the growing universe, it remained. It passed by these new stars, around the forming galaxies, through the wide corridors between cosmic filaments. It carried no memory of what came after its release, but it bore the shape of what was before. It did not blink. It did not pause. It simply continued, touching every era, every formation, every transformation the universe would experience. Over billions of years, galaxies began to cluster. They formed spirals and ellipticals, halos and arms. Stars aged, planets cooled, and light wove its gentle path through all of it. Some light became trapped inside galaxies, bound by clouds of dust, slowed by interactions with matter. Other beams escaped, flying freely across voids. Some would be captured by black holes, circling until swallowed. But some, a rare and fortunate few, would survive undisturbed and find their way to a quiet observatory on a blue planet, where humans, curious and wondering, would try to read their message. This message was not one of words or symbols. It was a pattern, a whisper in temperature, a slight variation in direction. Scientists learned to listen. They unfolded the map written in microwave tones. They saw a baby universe modeled and smooth, simple yet promising. And from it they traced the timeline of everything: when the first stars ignited, when galaxies formed, when space expanded. It was all there in the language of light. The more closely they looked, the more the patterns revealed. The universe, it seemed, had geometry. It had symmetry. It followed laws so gentle they could be mistaken for music. Even the tiniest irregularities in the early light would later become galaxies, meaning that we, too, come from those minute, ancient fluctuations. That the light not only carried the shape of the cosmos, but the seed of our very presence. And yet, for all its role in creation, light remains humble. It arrives in waves, not storms. It brings clarity without demand. It reveals the contours of time without claiming ownership. When you hold your hand up to the sun, the warmth you feel is a gentle echo of the same process that first lit the stars. When you light a candle, you are continuing a ritual that began at the dawn of time, the transformation of matter into light, the quiet expression of energy across darkness. Even now, the oldest light in the universe passes through you. It enters your body gently, unnoticed. It touches the molecules of your skin, moves through the walls of your home, flows between the atoms of your blood. It is everywhere, not loud, not blinding, but constant, like breath, like memory, like the soft ticking of a clock whose hands move across eons. And while new stars continue to shine and newer galaxies stretch into the dark, this original light never fades completely. It continues to stretch as the universe itself expands, becoming colder, softer, thinner. Eventually, its wavelength will grow so long that it may no longer be detectable. It will blend into the fabric of space itself, but it will still exist. It will still move. It will still be part of the unfolding silence. This is what the first breath of light gave us: not just illumination but rhythm, not just energy but structure. It gave the universe a beginning, and in doing so, it ensured the possibility of everything that followed. Trees, oceans, laughter, music, thought, all trace back to that quiet release. All are carried forward on its wave. And so when we look into the sky and see not just stars but the space between them, we are also seeing light's long journey. We are watching it stretch across time. We are hearing the tail end of its first breath. And in that breath, we are reminded of our place, not above or outside this story, but within it, made from it, dependent on it. Light did not have to continue, but it did. And because it did, we are here to witness, to wonder, to remember. Let us now follow that light to the present and imagine how gently it wraps around the cosmos, still, soft, steady, and endless. It has no edge, no weight, and yet it fills everything. It does not push or pull. It only travels, touching galaxies, slipping between stars, bathing planets in its glow. And as it continues, it becomes a kind of thread, one that ties all of time together. Because of light, we can look into the past. Because of light, we can see the stars as they were, not as they are. The light that reaches us tonight from the farthest galaxies began its journey before Earth had oceans, before Earth had a name. In the silence between stars, light never hurries. It moves at a fixed pace, neither slow nor fast, just constant. It moves because that is what it was born to do. And though it bends around gravity and stretches with the expansion of space, it does not resist. It simply follows the contours of the universe, like a river that learns to love the shape of every stone. In this way, light teaches us how to be present. It teaches us that movement does not always mean haste, and that arrival is not always the point. Sometimes, the journey itself is the story. Over time, the universe has changed. Stars are born and die. Galaxies collide. Matter clumps and scatters. But the light remains, gathering all these events into its tapestry. Some light is trapped in the centers of stars, never to emerge. Some is absorbed by dust, re-emitted as warmth. Some travels unhindered straight across the cosmic sea. Each ray carries a story, not in words but in wavelength. Whether it is radio, visible, or gamma, every photon tells of the process that released it. In this way, the universe becomes its own storyteller, using light as its voice. And we, here on our small blue planet, have become listeners. We have learned to build tools that let us hear the quiet voices of stars. Telescopes, satellites, sensors, they are our ears and eyes, our fingers brushing the soft fabric of time. When we look at a star, we are not just seeing its light. We are catching the echo of its history. We are touching its past, even as it continues to shine. The space between the light and the moment of its arrival is filled with silence. But it is not an empty silence. It is a cradle. It is where memory rests. Light, too, is woven into our daily lives. It feeds the plants that feed us. It marks the rhythms of day and night. It paints the sky in blue and gold. It dances on the surface of water. It slips through the canopy of trees. And though we think of it as ordinary, it is anything but. It is ancient. It is sacred. It is the first breath of the universe made visible, made warm, made beautiful. Every time we open a window and let the morning sun spill in, we are welcoming a visitor from the heart of time. There are moments late at night when the world grows still and the stars appear above us like scattered lanterns. In those moments, if you let your thoughts drift, you might begin to feel what the light has always known, that it is not separate from anything, that it touches all, that it does not judge what it touches. It simply illuminates. It simply reaches. It is as close to unconditional as anything we have. And it continues, through everything. Through storms and eclipses, through shadows and clouds, it continues. It does not need to be seen to exist. It does not need to be praised to matter. It simply moves, carrying history, carrying warmth, carrying the echo of a moment so old we can barely comprehend it. And yet that moment is not behind us. It is here. It is in the air. It is in the sky. It is inside us. Because we, too, are made of light. The atoms in our bodies were forged in stars. The energy we use to move, to think, to feel comes from the sun, stored in food, in cells, in breath. We are not separate from the light. We are one form of it, walking, speaking, wondering. And when we close our eyes, we do not leave it, we carry it inward. It becomes memory, imagination, dream. One day, the light that surrounds us now will travel beyond Earth. It will continue its journey long after we are gone. It will move through the dark between stars. Perhaps, someday, it will reach another world where eyes not yet imagined will receive it and know that somewhere, long ago, something warm and curious once lived beneath a yellow sun. In that moment, our light will become a message, not of words but of presence, a soft signature across the void. And what of the future? As the universe continues to expand, as stars exhaust their fuel and galaxies dim, light will become rarer. The cosmos will grow quieter. But even then, the breath of that first light will linger. It may stretch until its wavelength is as long as the universe itself. It may cool until it cannot warm even the dust. But it will be there, because nothing so gentle ever truly disappears. It only fades into a form we have yet to recognize. So if you ever feel small beneath the stars, remember this. The very light that began it all is the same light that now touches your skin. It is the same light that lit the first stars, that outlined the first atoms, that whispered across time until it found you. Not because you are special, but because everything is. Because light never chooses, it simply reaches. And in that reaching, it reminds us that the beginning is never truly behind us. It is all around us, within us, ongoing. For the first breath of light never stopped breathing. It became everything. There is a shape that drifts through the universe, delicate and vast, like a frozen whirlpool suspended in the dark. It spins slowly, gracefully, never rushing, its arms unfurling like ribbons of starlight across the cosmic sea. These are the spiral galaxies, luminous pinwheels of gas and dust and stars, each one turning quietly through space. From a distance, they seem to rest gently in the sky, still as painted shells. But they are always in motion, their arms coiling through time, tracing patterns so vast and soft that they feel like dreams unfolding. The Milky Way, our own home, is one of these great spirals. We cannot see its shape from where we sit inside it, but we infer it through the way stars move, through the placement of nebulae and dust lanes, through the long arcs of radio signals that map our place in its grand design. Two main arms curve outward from its center, thick with stars and glowing clouds. Between them lie smaller branches and wisps, each one filled with suns and worlds, some young and hot, others old and fading. We orbit this center, carried by the great wheel, turning once every 200 million years. And yet we feel none of it. The spin is too vast, too smooth, too slow. This spinning is not random. It is not chaos. It is order made from gravity and motion, a kind of cosmic choreography. But the secret of that spin is not as simple as stars moving in a circle. The arms themselves are not fixed structures. They are patterns, waves of density that move through the galaxy like ripples through a pond. Stars are born in these arms, drawn together by their gravity, then move on, leaving the pattern behind them. It is as if the spiral arms are not made of stars themselves, but of the movement that brings stars briefly close together. The pattern persists even as the stars flow through it. It is like a crowd at a stadium doing a wave. No one person stays in place, but the wave moves, clear and continuous. This phenomenon is known as a density wave, and it explains why spiral arms can exist for billions of years without breaking apart. The stars are travelers, passing through these regions where matter is slightly denser, like cars slowing down on a highway, making the pattern visible even though none of them stays. In these denser regions, gas clouds are squeezed, triggering the birth of new stars. That's why the spiral arms shine brighter. They are filled with young, hot stars, glowing blue and white, like sparks caught in a gentle breeze. But the spiral is not only a structure. It is a memory. It tells us how the galaxy formed and how it continues to evolve. In its curves lie the history of collisions with smaller galaxies, the influence of dark matter wrapping the halo, the echo of the galaxy's first spin. Scientists study this spiral not just for its beauty, but for its clues. The angle of its arms, the rate of their twist, the thickness of the central bulge. All of these are signatures, like handwriting on a celestial page, recording the quiet drama of billions of years. In some galaxies, the spiral arms are grand and clear, two bold curves stretching outward like wings. These are called grand design spirals, and they are often found in galaxies that have companions, other galaxies whose gravity tugs gently at their disks, encouraging the arms to tighten or extend. In others, the arms are patchy and loose, like scattered curls of mist. These flocculent spirals are softer, less ordered, their shapes shaped more by local star formation than by global patterns. But whether grand or loose, the spiral form remains, persistent, poetic, eternal. And what of the center? At the heart of most spiral galaxies lies a bulge, thick with older stars and often hidden deep within a black hole. In the Milky Way, this black hole is called Sagittarius A. It is massive, millions of times the mass of our Sun, and yet it does not disrupt the spiral. It waits silently, influencing the motions of stars near it, but letting the arms dance far beyond its reach. This balance between chaos and calm, between center and edge, is part of what gives spiral galaxies their grace. The spin of these galaxies is not fueled by engines or tides. It is the natural consequence of how matter gathered in the early universe. As gas and dust collapsed under gravity, even the tiniest rotation was amplified. Conservation of angular momentum, the same law that makes a spinning skater turn faster as they pull in their arms, caused the forming galaxy to flatten and spin. Over billions of years, the disk settled into its spiral form, the stars arranged like dancers in a turning waltz, each following its own path, but always within the larger rhythm. And as they move, they create something more than shape. They create harmony. The stars near the center orbit quickly, while those near the edge move more slowly. But somehow the whole system remains together, spinning, stretching, breathing. It is a balance that seems impossible, and yet it endures. The spiral arms do not fly apart. The stars do not fall inward. It is a dance that never ends, held in place by gravity's quiet guidance and the invisible scaffolding of dark matter that cradles the disk. When we see spiral galaxies through telescopes, they often appear tilted, never flat, never edge-on, but just enough for us to see their depth. They look like seashells, like flowers, like galaxies caught mid-twirl. Their colors tell their stories: bright blue in the arms, where stars are young and hot; golden near the center, where stars are older, softer, slower. And between the arms, dark lanes of dust trace the pathways of future stars, seeds not yet awakened. This is the secret of the spiral, not that it spins, but how it spins. Not that it moves, but how its movement is remembered, renewed, reborn. It is a form born of stillness and motion together, a shape that invites reflection. And when we look up at the night sky and wonder what we are spinning through, it comforts us to know that the answer is something so elegant, so gentle, so endlessly unfolding. Let us now drift further into the spiral, beyond its shimmering arms and glowing nebulae, into the deeper rhythms that hold its shape across billions of years. When a galaxy spins, it does not do so like a wheel or a solid plate. It spins as a symphony plays, each part following its own tempo, its own orbit, yet forming a whole that flows without breaking. The inner stars, close to the galactic center, move swiftly, tracing their orbits in shorter cycles. Farther out, the stars move more slowly, their paths wide and graceful. Yet through this difference, the spiral arms persist, held together not by rigid structure, but by harmony in motion. This differential rotation means that if the arms were made only of stars, they would wind up tightly over time, losing their shape. But they don't. This puzzle, once known as the winding problem, led scientists to look deeper. They discovered that the spiral arms are not fixed trails of matter but moving patterns, regions where gas and stars are briefly compressed, brightened, and then released again. This is the dance of density waves. The arms are like traveling ripples, and the stars are dancers stepping through them, sometimes aligning, sometimes drifting away, but always moving within the larger choreography. Within these arms, the conditions are just right for star formation. As the density wave moves through a region of gas, it compresses the cloud, pushing particles closer, sparking gravitational collapse. New stars are born, blue, bright, and short-lived. These stars light up the arm, making it visible even from millions of light-years away. Behind them, older stars remain, quieter in their glow, slowly drifting away from the wave that birthed them. It is a continuous process, not a one-time event. The arms sparkle not because they are filled with the same stars forever, but because new stars keep arriving, lighting the path as they pass. Between the arms, the galaxy is quieter. There the gas is thinner, the stars are older, the light is softer. These interarm regions are not empty, they are part of the flow. Stars drift from arm to arm, completing their orbits, sometimes returning, sometimes not. Dust clouds float gently, waiting for the right compression to begin the next cycle. It is like the space between notes in a melody, quiet but essential. Without it, the song would be noise. Without the space between spiral arms, the galaxy would be chaos. The spiral form also reveals something about the galaxy's past. By studying the tilt and curve of the arms, astronomers can trace how the galaxy has interacted with others. A slight asymmetry might suggest a past collision. A broken arm may hint at a satellite galaxy passing nearby. The stars remember. Their paths hold the signatures of long-forgotten dances. The arms, like the rings in a tree, are evidence of time's passing, not just as duration but as experience. And so galaxies evolve. Their arms may grow tighter or looser. New arms may appear. Old ones may fade. Sometimes two galaxies merge and their spirals are torn apart, replaced by new patterns, rings, bars, shells. But even in this change, the spiral speaks. It tells us that order can emerge from motion, that beauty can persist in flux, that something as vast as 100 billion stars can move together, not in stillness, but in shared rhythm. Some galaxies have central bars, long glowing stretches of stars crossing the nucleus from which the spiral arms extend. These bars are thought to help funnel gas toward the center, feeding black holes, triggering starbursts. They rotate slowly like the axle of a wheel, giving the galaxy another layer of spin. In barred spirals, the arms may appear more open, more flowing, as if drawn outward from the energy within. These features are not imperfections. They are variations, different expressions of the same language. The spiral allows many dialects, many forms, but its essence remains, a quiet, ordered spin. And while all of this unfolds over timescales far beyond our lives, we are part of it. The sun, our sun, is a star in the Orion arm, a small spur between the larger Sagittarius and Perseus arms. It moves at nearly 220 kilometers per second, yet it takes over 200 million years to complete a single orbit of the galactic center. In the time since dinosaurs walked the Earth, we've only gone a quarter of the way around. We are travelers in this spiral, riding the wave without ever feeling its motion. The dust around us, the starlight that bathes our sky, the radio waves that hum across our atmosphere, all of it is shaped by the spiral's slow turn. Even our seasons, our calendars, our sense of cosmic direction is tied to the sun's path through the Milky Way. And though we live on a small world orbiting a modest star, we are nestled within a structure so grand, so balanced, that it feels like a lullaby playing at the scale of galaxies. Somewhere far beyond our own spiral, another galaxy spins, and another, and another. They all turn slowly, some in pairs, some in solitude, their arms reaching through the dark. Each one holds its own stars, its own dust, its own histories, and yet they all share the same motion, the same winding grace. It is a language spoken across the cosmos, not in syllables but in spirals. To study these spirals is to study balance, not symmetry for its own sake, but symmetry born from motion. It is to listen for the deeper rhythm beneath the chaos, to find the order that does not need to be perfect to be profound. The spiral is not rigid. It allows for drift. It allows for change, but it never forgets its shape. And as we float within it, carried by the slow current of stars, we are reminded that we, too, belong to something that moves gently, that spins without sound, that holds its form through a harmony too slow to see, but not too slow to feel. Let us now complete our journey through the spiral, following its arms as they gently stretch outward into the deep, quiet corners of the galaxy. The farther we go from the center, the thinner the stars become. The brilliant blue clusters give way to softer yellow suns, then to red dwarfs, and eventually to space almost empty. The arms begin to blur, their curves fading into wisps, like the trailing ends of a breeze that never needed to shout. But even here in the outskirts, the spiral's memory lingers. It is not just a pattern drawn in light. It is a motion woven into space itself, turning endlessly, slowly, patiently. As the stars orbit the center, they carry with them the rhythm of the whole. Some dance tightly near the core, some loop farther out, but all are part of the spiral's breath. They don't spin in perfect circles, but in gentle ellipses, wobbling slightly, responding to gravity's subtle whispers. The spiral doesn't force them into order. It allows them to move freely while still being held. There's no need for control when balance is found in flow. In this final stretch of the spiral, there is more than just starlight. There is gas, thin and cold, stretching across hundreds of light years, waiting for the right moment to ignite into new stars. There are globular clusters, spherical gatherings of ancient stars orbiting the galaxy's edges like satellites made of time. There are rogue clouds, strange and dark, filled with molecules that drift in silence. All of these are part of the spiral's song. Even if they do not lie directly within its arms, they respond to its movement. They are listeners to the spin, witnesses to its long unfolding. The spiral is not eternal in the way we think of permanence. It evolves. Over billions of years, it may tighten, may fade, may be pulled and reshaped by nearby galaxies. The Milky Way, for example, is on a slow, certain path toward the Andromeda Galaxy. In about 4 billion years, they will meet. Not in an explosion, but in a quiet interweaving. Their spirals will tangle, their stars will pass through one another, and a new galaxy will emerge. The spiral pattern we know will change. But change is not loss. Change is the spiral's continuation in a new form. Even now, the spiral shape can be seen not just in galaxies, but echoed in storms, in hurricanes, in shells, in pinecones, in the arrangements of leaves. Nature repeats what works, what balances, what endures. The spiral, with its balance of form and freedom, is one of nature's most persistent signatures. To see it in the sky is to feel connected not only to the galaxy, but to life itself. Astronomers often speak of spiral arms as if they are arms of a living being, reaching, curving, embracing the galactic core. And in some ways they are. They hold the past where old stars burn gently. They cradle the present where new stars are born. They stretch into the future toward regions where light has not yet reached. They connect all three, past, present, and possibility, in a single unbroken gesture. And for us, small travelers riding this spiral through time, there is comfort in its presence. We don't need to understand every force or every equation to feel the peace of its motion. The fact that we orbit calmly, without chaos, that we live in a galaxy shaped like a lullaby, means something. It means that the universe allows grace. It means that vastness does not require violence. It means that even among hundreds of billions of galaxies, our home carries a kind of soft beauty. At night, when we look up and see the Milky Way stretching across the sky like a faint river of stars, we are seeing the inside of the spiral's arm. We are looking along the curve into the depth of its form. The stars appear dense because we're gazing edge-on through its disk. But what we don't see is the shape as a whole, the great sweeping motion, the gentle turn, the calm spiral that holds us. Yet even without seeing it directly, we know it is there. We feel it in the arc of constellations, in the migration of the sun, in the way starlight leans gently across time. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this spiral is how quietly it holds its truth. It doesn't demand to be seen. It doesn't need applause. It simply is, spinning softly always, a form built not from permanence but from balance, a memory shaped into motion, a whisper of order in a universe that could have chosen chaos but instead chose to sing. So as the arms stretch beyond our vision, as the stars drift in their orbits, as dusk gathers for the next generation of suns, the spiral continues, not hurried, not finished, just unfolding as it always has, with the patience of stars and the grace of time. And we brief, wondering beings made of the same dust continue within it, riding the spiral, living its story, spinning gently through a galaxy that holds us without holding us back. There are places in the universe where space itself trembles, not loudly, not visibly, but with the softest shift imaginable. These are not ripples on water, nor winds across the sky, but waves through the very fabric of reality. Space, it turns out, is not fixed and rigid like glass. It can bend, stretch, and carry vibrations across unimaginable distances. These vibrations are called gravitational waves, and they are the faint echoes of the cosmos moving, not with fury but with force, so profound that even the silence shakes. Long before we could hear them, these waves traveled. They came from colliding black holes, from neutron stars spiraling inward like dancers in the dark, from cataclysmic events so distant that their light had long since faded. But light alone cannot tell every story. Some things are hidden behind dust, behind time, behind space itself. Gravitational waves are different. They pass through everything. They do not scatter. They do not stop. They move like whispers through a deep forest, touching every branch without breaking a single one. Einstein first predicted them quietly in the soft equations of general relativity. He saw that mass bends space and that moving masses create ripples, gentle ones but real. For a long time, these ripples were thought too small to detect. The shift they cause is smaller than an atom, like noticing a change in the width of a hair from across the galaxy. But the waves were always there, waiting. And then, a century later, we heard them. In 2015, scientists at LIGO, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, detected the first signal. It lasted less than a second. A tiny stretching and squeezing of space recorded as a faint chirp. Two black holes had collided more than 1 billion light-years away, releasing a burst of energy not as light, but as a wave through the very structure of the cosmos. That wave had traveled all that distance, unchanged, unbroken, and had brushed gently across the Earth. We did not feel it, but the instruments did. And in that moment, a new way of listening to the universe was born. To understand gravitational waves, imagine space as a fabric, not flat but flexible. When a massive object like a star or black hole moves quickly, it sends out ripples like a stone dropped into a pond. These ripples stretch and compress space itself, not just through matter but through the emptiness between. They are not like sound, which needs air, or light, which can be blocked. They are purer, quieter, and far more enduring. Once released, they travel forever, carrying with them the memory of their source, not just where it was but how it moved. These waves can tell us things no telescope can. From them, we learn about the lives of black holes, about how stars die and fall inward. We learn about the shape of spacetime, about the earliest moments after the Big Bang. Because even that, we believe, may have sent out gravitational waves, vibrations from the universe's birth cry, still echoing across the expanding dark. But more than information, gravitational waves offer something poetic. They are reminders that motion is never truly silent, that even the heaviest, darkest objects speak. That space is not still, but alive with breath we cannot see. When two neutron stars spiral together, their gravity distorts the space around them, sending out waves long before they touch. The moment of collision is only the end of a much longer conversation, a slow crescendo played on the strings of spacetime. Detecting these waves is a miracle of patience and precision. LIGO and its twin in Europe, Virgo, use laser beams and mirrors to measure changes in length so small they defy ordinary understanding. These observatories must be still, shielded from every bump and whisper of the Earth. Yet even then, the waves arrive gently, brushing across the detectors like a breeze across skin. And from that whisper, entire stories emerge. Distances, masses, spins, histories, all written in the rhythm of a wave. More detections followed. Black holes in various sizes merging. Neutron stars colliding, sending out not just gravitational waves but also light. For the first time, we saw the same event in two ways, one with our eyes, one with our ears. This was multi-messenger astronomy, and it was like hearing and seeing lightning at the same time. Suddenly, the universe grew more complete. It wasn't just light and sound. It was structure, shape, motion. It was something we could feel through its tiniest shifts. Gravitational waves do not just pass by, they pass through. They alter ever so slightly the space we inhabit. Every second, waves from distant collisions ripple through your body, through your home, through the Earth. You do not notice. You do not need to, but they are there, gentle and persistent. The universe is not quiet, it hums. And now we have begun to listen. Imagine now the night sky not as a canvas but as a pool, dark, smooth, infinite. Light sparkles on its surface, tracing stars and galaxies. But below that surface there are ripples. slow, deep, wide. These are the echoes in the fabric of space. They do not disturb the stars, but they shape the story. And once you learn to hear them, the cosmos changes. It becomes not just seen, but felt. And the most beautiful truth, these waves never end. Long after the collision fades, the ripples continue. They spread and thin, but they do not vanish. They are the universe's way of remembering motion, of preserving events too old or hidden for light to tell. They carry the sound of creation, the signature of transformation, and in their rhythm we begin to hear not just what the universe is, but how it breathes. Let's drift deeper now, into the soft undulations of space where gravitational waves continue their silent journey. They do not lose strength easily, nor do they rush. They glide, undisturbed, as if space itself was made to carry their rhythm. Some waves come from the dance of two compact stars, caught in a spiral that tightens with time. Others echo from events even more ancient, ripples born in the first fractions of a second after the universe expanded into being. These waves are not like the light that dazzles or the sound that startles. They are calm, subtle, a shifting of distance so gentle that only the most delicate instruments and the deepest patience can ever notice it. After the first detection, astronomers began to listen more closely. The detectors were upgraded, fine-tuned, and spread across continents. New observatories joined the chorus. Soon, more waves were caught, each one telling of a distant merger, a faraway collision. But more than just individual events, a pattern began to emerge. A background hum, like the hush of wind across a vast plain. This gravitational wave background is not a single note. It is a symphony of every ripple still traveling through space, overlapping and mingling, like the memory of countless steps upon a shore. Scientists now believe that the entire universe is filled with this low, constant vibration. Not loud enough to shake the stars, not fast enough to trouble the planets, but present, persistent. And like the low bass of a distant drum, it gives the cosmos a grounding, a beat beneath the melody of light. This background is difficult to measure. It does not sing in clear tones, but through the timing of pulsars, those spinning neutron stars that blink with perfect regularity, we begin to detect its sway. If a gravitational wave passes between us and a pulsar, the beat shifts subtly as space stretches and compresses. From these tiny variations, we begin to hear the deep voice of the universe. And it speaks of more than just collisions. It may whisper of things we've never seen, supermassive black holes circling each other in galaxies far beyond reach, dark energy stirring the edges of space, or even exotic objects we have yet to imagine. Gravitational waves carry no image. They paint no picture, but in their shape lies the structure of movement itself. They show us that even in darkness, even in silence, there is always motion, always a trace of what came before. As our detectors grow more sensitive, we look further back, toward the gravitational waves of the early universe. The theory suggests that just after the Big Bang, during a phase called inflation, space expanded faster than light, stretching tiny fluctuations into cosmic waves. These primordial gravitational waves would be the oldest signals in existence, older than the cosmic microwave background, older than stars, older than atoms. To detect them would be to hear the first true voice of creation, not in light, but in touch, not in color, but in contour, a map of the infant universe written in the sway of space itself. We have not yet found them, but we are listening. And while we search, gravitational waves continue to teach us about things we thought we knew. Take black holes. For decades, we saw them as silent objects, dark, invisible, distant. But now we hear their stories in waves. We know their sizes, their masses, their spins. We can even guess their histories, how fast they turned, how heavy they were, how far apart they began. Two black holes orbiting each other emit waves as they spiral inward. The closer they come, the faster they turn. The waves grow louder, more frequent, until at last they collide, and the resulting black hole rings like a bell struck with the weight of suns. This ringing, the ringdom, is also a gravitational wave. It is the sound of space relaxing into its new shape. In these waveforms, scientists see fingerprints, not just of the black holes but of the laws of physics themselves. If gravity worked differently, the waves would sound different. If space were made of something finer, more structured, the waves would behave strangely. Every detection becomes a test of theory, a check against our deepest assumptions. And so far the waves agree. Einstein was right. Space does bend. Time does stretch. The universe does ripple quietly forever. But the beauty of gravitational waves is not just in their science. It is in what they reveal about the nature of connection. These waves link two events separated by unimaginable distance and time. A star dies in a galaxy a billion light-years away, and its motion, its final sigh, touches Earth, not with fire but with the faintest change in space. That change passes through us, through the Earth, through mountains and oceans and sky. It does not stop. It does not ask permission. It simply continues, as if the universe were gently sharing its memory with every part of itself. And we, in our quiet observatories, listen. We listen not for noise but for motion, not for brightness but for breath. And in that listening, we are drawn into the rhythm of the cosmos, not as outsiders but as participants. The gravitational waves do not pass around us. They pass through us. They shape us, if only by reminding us how finely woven we are into the fabric of space. Someday, perhaps not far from now, we will detect gravitational waves from entirely new sources. Supernova explosions, cosmic strings, even unknown physics unfolding at the edge of thought. Each wave will be a message, a ripple of time, a whisper carried across the oldest ocean. And with each one, our picture of the universe will grow not just in size but in feeling, in depth, in quiet wonder. For we now know that space is not silent. It hums, it remembers, and it carries through gravitational waves the shape of motion itself. Now let us follow these quiet waves to their softest edge, where their motion slows, not from resistance but from distance. The echoes of space do not fade with fatigue, they stretch. They grow longer, fainter, thinner, but they never disappear. In the far future, long after stars dim and galaxies drift apart, gravitational waves will still travel. Long after the last photons are scattered into cold silence, these waves will pass through the frozen dark, carrying the memory of what once moved. They are not loud, they are not fast, but they are persistent. They are the soft footprints of motion, etched gently into the universe's deepest skin. As we turn our gaze inward, we begin to understand something deeper about these waves. They don't just pass through space, they are space. When a gravitational wave moves, it does not move in space like sound in air. It moves space itself. It stretches distances, compresses directions, folds and unfolds the invisible scaffolding on which all matter rests. You could be floating in deep space, far from every galaxy, and still a wave would find you, altering the space between your molecules ever so slightly. You would never feel it, but it would pass through you, as real as wind, as delicate as breath. In this realization lies something beautiful, that the universe speaks in form, not just in light, that every action, every orbit, every collapse and collision sends out not just light to be seen, but touch to be felt, if only you're quiet enough to notice. The space between things is not empty. It is capable of carrying memory. It is sensitive to change. It is alive in ways we are only beginning to comprehend. In this silence, we discover that nothing is ever truly gone. Every black hole that spins, every star that falls, every merger, every motion, it all leaves its echo. The waves may be faint, may be stretched across the fabric of time, but they remain, and they are equal. They do not shout louder because of distance. They do not fade with importance. Whether the collision was small or large, recent or ancient, nearby or unimaginably far, the wave travels on. The universe remembers everything that ever moved with mass, everything that ever pulled on space. And still, the search continues. We build detectors in deep caverns protected from noise. We float instruments in space, far from Earth's tremble. We learn to subtract the sound of our own breath from the song of the cosmos. We map the subtle beat of neutron stars, the sudden ring of black hole mergers, the stretching whispers of colliding galaxies. And beyond these known signals, we await the ones we cannot yet describe, waves from phenomena still hidden behind the veil of imagination. The idea that the universe has a pulse is no longer poetry, it is science. But perhaps it was always both. The language of gravity, once thought mute, now reveals its vocabulary. Curvature, tension, collapse, rebound, all written in waves, all echoed across the stars. These are not metaphors. These are the very structure of space shifting under the memory of mass. When we feel the ripple, we do not just know where something was. We know what it did, how it moved, how it changed the world around it. Someday we may use gravitational waves to peer beyond what light can show us, to study the cores of supernovae, to trace the hidden galaxies behind dust, to reach back before the first atoms formed. These waves are keys to locked doors. They are the stories no light can tell. They are the shadows of things too vast to reflect, too subtle to glow. And through all of this, through the unfolding realization that space is not passive, that silence is not stillness, we come to a humbling truth: we are part of this fabric too. Our own motions, though small, also pull on space. Our Earth orbiting the Sun creates its own faint ripple. Our Sun moving through the Milky Way sends its own delicate shiver. Even our bodies, though tiny, bend space infinitesimally. We are not separate from the fabric. We are within it, moving with it, contributing to the soft, endless rhythm that connects everything. To lie beneath the stars and imagine them as fixed is comforting, but incomplete. They move, they fall, they sing. And in their falling, in their spinning, they do not merely shine. They stir the space around them. They reach out, not in heat or light, but in form, in the quiet reshaping of reality. And that reshaping finds us, wraps through us, reminds us that motion is universal, and universal motion is beautiful. So when we speak of gravitational waves, we are not just talking about the universe's violence. We are speaking of its memory. We are listening to the way space recalls every movement, every moment, every massive breath taken by a star. We are learning to feel time not just through clocks, but through the way space bends around us. And as we continue to listen, deeper, softer, more patiently, we may find that the echoes in the fabric of space are not a background at all. They are a voice. Not human, not loud, but real. A voice made of motion. A voice made of time. A voice that says, I remember. I remember when the stars danced. I remember when the galaxies fell together. I remember you. There are worlds we will never visit. Planets that circle, stars no longer shining, moons adrift in the cold outer arms of forgotten systems, icy spheres beyond the edge of light. They are not lost, but they are distant and quiet and wrapped in stories that no telescope can fully unfold. Some are too far, some are too faint. Some were known once and then slipped from memory, tucked beneath the growing list of brighter finds. And yet these worlds remain, orbiting, waiting, holding their shape with gravity's soft touch. They do not cry out. They do not vanish. They simply continue, held always by the same force that cradles galaxies, that sculpts stars, that turns the tide. Gravity, though invisible, is the great sculptor. It does not strike or pull with cords, it persuades. It leans gently across space and draws things toward one another. It forms the spiral arms of galaxies, the rings around planets, the oceans on Earth. It binds things not in chains but in rhythms. Planets dance around their stars not because they are pushed, but because they are held. Moons turn with their planets. Tides rise and fall. Everything is always falling, always curving, always caught in motion, too soft to feel, yet too powerful to ignore. In this vast choreography, there are worlds that form far from the warmth of suns. Rogue planets drifting without a star float through the galaxy on lonely paths. They are not broken. They are not failed. They are simply untethered. Perhaps they were ejected early in their system's life, nudged by a sibling giant. Perhaps they formed in darkness, from clouds of gas that never quite found a center. Some may carry thick atmospheres, warmed by their own inner heat. Others may be silent ice, moving endlessly through the black. And though they seem forgotten, they are still shaped by gravity, still part of the story. There are planets that orbit dead stars, white dwarfs, neutron stars, black holes. Their suns may be gone, but their paths remain. The pull of gravity does not vanish with light. A black hole, quiet and unseen, still bends the fabric of space, still holds what comes near. Around it, debris may swirl, a disk of glowing dust fed by fallen fragments. And in that swirl there may be a planet, a relic, a survivor, moving in perfect obedience to a sun that no longer shines. These worlds do not burn, but they endure. And what of the icy bodies on the edges of systems? The Kuiper belts, the Oort clouds, the scattered disks of planets unborn. They orbit in shadows, far from any sunrise, frozen and slow. Yet they too are worlds, composed of rock and water and complex carbon chains. Some may harbor oceans beneath their shells, warmed by the flexing of tides. Others may sit in darkness for billions of years, waiting for the rare moment when gravity stirs them, a passing star, a shifting planet, and they are sent inward, glowing briefly as comets before fading once more. Gravity is what remembers them. While the light forgets, while time moves forward, gravity holds. It does not age, it does not sleep. It wraps around every atom, every world, binding softly. A moon around a planet around a sun around the center of a galaxy. All are linked, not by sound, not by sight, but by this quiet, persistent pull. It is not loud. It does not change quickly, but it keeps the forgotten in place. Some of these forgotten worlds were known once. Ancient astronomers tracked faint wanderers across the sky, recording their passage in ink and stone. Some were discovered in the modern age, catalogued, measured, and then left behind as attention moved to brighter, closer objects. Some exist only in data, noticed once in a passing blur, never seen again. They are the ghosts of planetary catalogues, the silent companions of stars we no longer watch, but they have not vanished. They still orbit, still spin, still fall gently through space as they always have. There is a quiet dignity in these forgotten worlds. They do not need to be seen to be real. They do not need to be named to exist. They are held by the same laws that govern all things, and their gravity, though small, also reaches outward. A tiny moon pulls slightly on its planet. A lonely planet tugs imperceptibly on a passing star. The web of gravity connects even the smallest with the greatest. Nothing is truly separate. Everything leans on everything else. Astronomers sometimes speak of Planet 9, a hypothetical world in the distant edge of our solar system, too far to see, too slow to trace. Its presence is guessed by the orbits of other distant objects, bent in ways that suggest a hidden influence. We have not found it, perhaps we never will, but its gravity may be shaping our solar system even now, guiding icy bodies, keeping the outer dance in tune. If it exists, it is another forgotten world, not by time but by distance. A world that reminds us that not all truths are visible, and not all influences are loud. And perhaps beyond even that are other systems, other stars, other forgotten planets circling in long, slow ellipses waiting out the ages. Some may bear atmospheres, clouds, rains of methane or snow. Some may be entirely ocean. Some may be cracked and dry, holding only echoes. And yet all are cradled in gravity's arms. All are remembered in the movement of the stars. Even on Earth, gravity holds memory. The ocean tides carry the mark of the moon's pull. The shape of mountains is shaped by the weight of stone. The orbit of our planet keeps us close to the sun, neither flying away nor falling inward. It is not will that keeps us here. It is gravity, gentle, steady, eternal. So as we imagine these forgotten worlds, far and quiet and cold, we are reminded of this. Nothing that is held by gravity is truly gone. It may be unseen, it may be unnamed, but it is still part of the story. It still moves, it still matters. Let us now drift further into this silent realm of forgotten worlds, the ones that circle alone or in small clusters, far beyond the warmth of suns or the gaze of telescopes. These planets do not call for attention, yet their presence is deeply felt. Some orbit stars that dimmed before our species learned to see, and others wander between stars, unbound by any sun. Yet they are all kept in motion by the same invisible touch, gravity, which holds gently but firmly, like a memory that never lets go. It does not need light to work. It does not need to be noticed. It is always present, always shaping the paths of those left in the quiet. There are solar systems with planets that once might have thrived, bathed in warmth, wrapped in clouds, rich with storms and soil and perhaps even breath. But time moved on. Stars age. Their fuel burns away. They swell into giants, swallowing the inner planets, or shrink into dwarfs, leaving their children to orbit a cold remnant. Some of those planets survive, though their skies are no longer blue, their nights no longer filled with moonlight. They orbit in silence now, around white embers or invisible black cores. The orbits continue. Gravity never forgets them. In the galaxy's outer rims, there are countless planets locked in distant elliptical paths. Their years may last centuries. Their days may stretch beyond reckoning. They swing inward slowly, basking briefly in starlight, then arc outward again into the cold. These orbits are not mistakes. They are symphonies written in gravitational math, quiet, precise, and beautiful. These planets are not failed creations. They are survivors of cosmic architecture. Some carry moons. Some may still have thin atmospheres, clinging to warmth deep within. All of them spin slowly, wrapped in the quiet persistence of orbit. Not all forgotten worlds are so far away. Some orbit brown dwarfs, objects not quite stars, not quite planets, failed suns glowing faintly in the infrared, invisible to human eyes. Around them may be planets, dimmer still, circling gently unseen. These systems are shadows of brightness, made not of light but of form. And they are common. Astronomers believe brown dwarfs outnumber stars. If each one holds even a few planets, then most of the universe's worlds may lie in twilight, not in sunshine. And then there are exoplanets that pass in front of stars just once, their signal caught only by chance. Their names are numbers, one detection, one light curve, then silence. They are marked, then missed as the star continues to shine, but the planet never transits again in view. These are the lonely ghosts of catalogs, confirmed by math but never seen again. Yet they remain. Their gravity still pulls. Their orbits still proceed. They are part of their star's symphony, even if the conductor is too far for us to hear. Some worlds are tidally locked, always showing one face to their sun. Half an endless day, half an endless night. The line between them, the terminator, may be where winds howl and clouds churn, a ring of eternal twilight that circles endlessly. On such planets, gravity is not just the reason for orbit, it shapes their very character. The tides it causes, the bulges it forms, even the way a planet turns or fails to turn, are all part of its story. Even smaller worlds, dwarf planets and moons, bear gravity's quiet mark. Some tumble chaotically, like Saturn's moon Hyperion, spinning unpredictably in its eccentric orbit. Others, like Europa or Enceladus, are squeezed by gravitational forces, generating heat within that may sustain oceans beneath ice. These hidden seas are warmed not by starlight, but by the gentle pull of nearby giants. Life, if it exists there, would owe its chance not to light, but to motion, to gravity's tender kneading of ice and stone. Beyond the solar systems, in interstellar space, lie the rogue planets, worlds untethered from any star. They do not orbit, they wander. Perhaps they were flung out during planetary migrations. Perhaps they formed alone, never finding a mass large enough to become a star. In either case, they drift now through the dark. Yet even here, gravity remains their guide. They pass through galactic arms, influenced by clouds and stars they cannot see. They may carry moons. They may possess atmospheres. Their surfaces may be warmed by core heat or cooled to near absolute zero. They are not failed, they are simply free. And yet none are truly forgotten by the universe itself. Every world, whether named or nameless, large or small, warm or cold, leaves its imprint. A planet's gravity tugs on its star, creating a subtle wobble we can detect from light years away. Its movement shapes the orbits of other nearby bodies. Even its mass contributes ever so slightly to the motion of the galaxy. There is no such thing as isolation in space. Gravity ensures that everything touches everything else, eventually. Some stars, long since exploded, leave behind neutron stars, city-sized objects with mass greater than the sun. Around them may remain planets, scarred and silent. Others may orbit slowly decaying pulsars, their surfaces bombarded by radiation, their rotations measured in milliseconds. And still they orbit. Still they hold their paths. Even when the light is harsh or gone entirely, the gravity persists, cradling the remnants in exacting ellipses. There's a kind of peace in knowing this, that gravity is the great keeper of the forgotten, that it does not need us to watch in order to act, that every world, whether known or never seen, is held gently in place, moving through a universe that honors its path. These planets may never shine, they may never be mapped, but they will always be real. And in a way, their existence comforts us. It tells us that memory does not depend on attention, that even when the spotlight has moved on, the orbit continues. The tides still rise, the moon still turns, the planet still sings its quiet song through the vacuum, wrapped in gravity's care. These are not the stars of our stories, but they are the pages beneath, steady, unseen, holding the tale in place. And now, as we drift to the quietest edges of this tale, we return to the truth that gravity has no voice, no color, no flame, only form. It is the presence that never leaves, the hand that never lets go. It doesn't push or pull as we might expect. It curves. It folds. It reshapes the paths of stars, the shells of moons, the orbits of invisible wanderers. In this final motion of forgotten worlds, gravity is the lullaby, the steady rhythm playing beneath the silence of distance and the hush of lightless space. It is the memory of movement, the shape of stillness, and the invisible line that connects all things. Even on planets where nothing stirs, gravity is writing. It carves valleys where rivers once flowed, now dry. It shapes the way dust settles, the way ice clings to shadowed craters, the way cracked mountains lean toward unseen centers. These are not empty places. They are books with forgotten covers, libraries whose pages still carry the soft script of motion, even if no eye remains to read them. Every ridge, every impact, every orbital trace is a paragraph in gravity's ancient language. We often think of discovery as light, what we see, what we photograph, what we illuminate. But in reality, many of the universe's truths are found in the shadows. The wobble of a star betrays a planet we cannot see. The bending of light tells of mass hidden from view. The pattern of comets hints at bodies long lost in the deep. Gravity speaks not through brightness, but through presence. And in this way, the forgotten worlds still speak. Consider Pluto, not forgotten perhaps, but demoted, dismissed, and then rediscovered with new wonder. Once thought to be little more than a distant ball of ice, it now reveals itself as dynamic and beautiful. Mountains of frozen water, plains of nitrogen, a thin atmosphere, fleeting and real. It is a reminder that even the small and quiet can surprise us. That gravity works its artistry not only in giants but in the humble, in the cold, in the worlds we almost overlooked. And beyond Pluto lie more, Makemake, Haumea, Eris, distant, elliptical, slow, each with moons, each with surfaces that reflect the story of bombardment and freeze, of motion and rest. These are not barren leftovers. They are companions of the outer dark, held in the same net that binds the earth and sun. And beyond them, the Oort cloud, a sphere of icy fragments, perhaps trillions of them, spread across light years. Their orbits are so vast that a single journey may take millions of years. But they too orbit, they too are held. The Oort cloud may be the cradle of comets, those brief visitors who light up our skies and then disappear again into deep time. These comets are messengers from forgotten places. Their tails are temporary, but their cores are ancient. They began as whispers in a cold and distant place, moved by gravity's suggestion, pulled inward by the slow unfolding of possibility. And when they pass the sun, we see them only briefly, but they return to the dark where they belong. Even in other star systems, we now find evidence of distant, cold worlds, planets circling at wide angles, taking centuries to orbit once. Some are gas giants like Jupiter, orbiting far from their suns. Others are rocky or icy, small and hidden, discovered only through careful mathematics. Each one reminds us, light may fade but orbit continues. Heat may be absent but gravity holds on. And sometimes, in the quiet of night, astronomers point their instruments not at the stars but at the darkness between them. There they listen for the faint tug of a planet, the slight shift in starlight, the subtle echo of a transit. These are the arts of patience, of humility, of believing that even the unseen matters. The forgotten worlds may not shine, but they are real, and the universe does not forget what it has created. So too our own planet orbits in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. The Milky Way has no center stage, no prime spotlight. It is one spiral among billions, and within it our solar system is tucked between arms far from the core. And within that solar system, Earth is a small, rocky planet orbiting a middle-aged star. We too are easily overlooked. Yet here we are, remembered by gravity, held in orbit, spinning slowly in the great unfolding of time. And perhaps far from here there are other eyes looking out, also orbiting, also wondering. Other beings whose worlds have never known sunlight, whose skies are lit by dim red stars or not at all. They too would know gravity. They too would feel the pull of moons and tides, the lean of mountains, the slow wobble of orbits over eons. In this way, gravity is universal not only in law but in intimacy. It shapes experience. It defines time. It becomes the heartbeat of every world, no matter how forgotten. The universe is not in a rush. Its stories unfold across billions of years, written in arcs and ellipses in the slow dance of planets that will never be named. We may never reach them. We may never see them. But they are there, each one a chapter, each one turning slowly in the gravity of what was and what still is. So let us remember the forgotten, the icy, the far, the dark, the unseen. Let us honor the quiet worlds that orbit with no audience, for they are not gone, they are not lost, they are not waiting for us. They simply exist, carried gently by the gravity that holds everything, that links every star and speck, that cradles even the coldest world in a curve of care. And in this final reflection we understand, gravity is not just a force, it is a thread. It is the universe's way of keeping its stories close, and even the stories we forget, the quietest, the smallest, the slowest, are still being written in its hand.